Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats your boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing Tracker Season 2, Episode 11. So before I get into my review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to my channels, likes my videos, leaves me comments. I appreciate you so much. I read all my comments. I love to interact and have discussions. So if you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. So when we get into this episode, the first scene in the show shows Tracker and he's like bound, right? He's kind of on his knees and you see him, I guess they hit him because you see him spitting up blood. So you're like, okay, what did he get himself into? And one, I've never seen him in a situation he can't, talk or fight his way out of. So obviously it kind of ropes you in the very first scene there. And then you get the whole, blank screen 18 hours earlier. So you're like, okay, so the whole show is going to be leading up to this moment at the end. And then it shows Rennie, and she's with her boyfriend, Elliot. And he's got a new client that's kind of freaking out, Ivy Hale. She owns Ivy Bakes. It's a chain of bakeries. And her 23-year-old son is missing. So, I guess her Rennie's boyfriend is also a lawyer or an accountant, and it's one of their big clients. Like I said, it's kind of a chain, Ivy Bakes. So he's fairly new to this client, but he was like, well, she's kind of freaking out. She wants the best. So, of course, Rennie says you should call Coulter. So we get Coulter involved, and Coulter meets Ivy, and she's very strong-willed. I want the best, you're the best, $50,000 reward. Like, I need to find my son. And there is an employee in the bakery when Coulter visits. Because remember, whenever Coulter takes a case, he always visits the person that's going to give him the reward, right, to get information. So Ivy's son is named Matt. So he has a girlfriend who's married. So obviously she doesn't like that. And I can understand being a parent, right? We don't want our children dating married people. But there is an employee there named Casey, and we find out later it is Ivy's cousin. But she's rather harsh to him, just being mean and talking down to him. Pretty tough on him. And, Coulter talks to him while he's out doing the deliveries or outside of, the bakery. And he says, yeah, she's tough. Maddie got in a fight with her. Ivy's very controlling, tracks Maddie, tracks his phone, always knows where he is. So for 23, seems a little obsessive to be controlling your son at that age, right? Not that I'm judging. My channel is a judge-free zone. But at first, they want you to believe, hey, she's very controlling. And by seeing her kind of stern demeanor the first time we meet her and the way she was so mean to Casey, I'm like, okay, there's got to be something else going on here, right? Like she's a scared parent and maybe she's just acting out, as you do when you're afraid for your children. But so we did find out from Casey that Maddie takes long lunches alone. So now Coulter's like, all right, we've got to lead. We got to find this girlfriend, whether she's married. There's got to be a place where, Matt meets her. So he calls Bobby. And cousin Randy is there. Now, you've heard me say in my other videos, I love Bobby. I think he's such a fun character. The actor's phenomenal. He's so funny and so just a happy-go-lucky person, and he's so smart, and I love his little banter with Coulter. But I have to say, cousin Randy, he filled in last episode and this episode. He's very funny and very smart in tech as well. So I do miss Bobby. I really hope that actor comes back. But if he doesn't, I'm definitely happy with Randy as a replacement because cousin Randy is very funny. And he gets the job done and, does what Coulter needs just like Bobby did. But I am partial to Bobby. So I'm hoping he comes back. Obviously, I don't know. But cousin Randy does his job. He finds Lucy, finds that she has a studio that she pays for without her husband knowing. So, Coulter goes to the apartment, to question her, and as he's there, he sees water under the door. So of course we assume something bad. So we find Lucy is tied up on the floor in the bathroom, and the tub is like overflowing. So Coulter takes the bandage over her mouth and is like, they took Matt. That's the first thing she said. Um, he said I was She said I was going to take a bath. Matt opened the door. Some woman started yelling and then some man just barged in and took him. But she said they looked at a picture on their phone and says, yeah, this is the right guy. So it makes you think that they're just hired hands if they didn't really know who they were taking and they needed to look at a picture of Matt. But something interesting the girlfriend said before this incident happened, when I talked to Matt a while ago, he said, if anything ever happens, don't call the cops. So, I mean, definitely seems a little sketchy, like he knew if anything should happen to him. So, Coulter was able to get a lead tracking it back to a hotel. So he goes up to the front desk and asks about Matt because we know that he was there. And the front desk person didn't recognize him at all, which seemed sketchy for Coulter. So he just kind of hangs back like Coulter does. And, he sees somebody go up and say, yeah, they were calling about this person. So he follows them back to a back room and it kind of looks like a bookie. I mean, they were counting cash. There's a big whiteboard. I don't really know what kind of illegal business they were in. But at any rate, Coulter went in there and saw it and he fought off a couple guys, but of course they got him and they're like, call the boss. So then they're in some parking lot and the boss gets there. And he's like, look, I don't care what kind of business you're in. I'm just looking for Matt Hale. And, they're like, well, I didn't take him. Like, my name is Rick Leto and I didn't take him. And then he starts talking to him like, you do realize that she's not just baking pastries, that, she's in some illegal business. And, Coulter's like, that's none of my business. I'm just here for Matt. But then the guys were like, well, he knows too much because he saw our operation in the back. So, of course, they want to kill him, which I think is the scene we saw at the beginning. Like, okay, he knows too much. We have to get rid of him. So two of his guys take him out to this field and then bam, you go right back to the beginning of the episode with him on his knees tied up, and they're ready. So he basically says, like, look, you don't have to kill me. Like, I'm just looking for Matt. I don't care what y'all are doing. But one of the guys said that he knew Matt. So I think Coulter was kind of talking to him, and the other guy was just like, nah, let's just, and he's beating him up. And I'm like, okay, you get off on this stuff. You're like a really weird man, strange, twisted man, right? So then the other guy shoots the other guy instead of Colton. So the guy's name is Vargas. And instead of killing Colton, he kills the other bad guy. And he even says, like, yeah, he was weird. He got off on killing people. But Coulter was like, Matt. And Vargas was like, yeah, Matt and I grew up together. We were best friends growing up. And he was like, but he's a Hale. And, my father worked for Rick Lindo. So I was in the Lindo territory. So as we got older, we couldn't really talk. We were kind of on opposite businesses, territory, they were rivals in whatever illegal business they were doing. But he still cares for Matt. So, I mean, that's why he was like, that's why he killed the other guy. And he gave Coulter some information about Matt. He's like, yeah, I met him at the hotel. I got a text from a burner phone telling me to meet there. I thought it was Matt. I got there. Matt said he got the same thing and he thought it was me. So then they realized they were getting set up. So they left. So now Coulter's like, all right, maybe it's like a third, gang or third person getting into the business and they want to see Matt and Vargas together. And Vargas is like, yeah, I can't be seen with Matt. I mean, they can't know that I, friends with him. So definitely makes you think there's some kind of third party, right? Maybe just wanting to take both of them down. And when he met Rick Leto, I mean, he's like a mob boss. He wasn't nice, but I believed him when he said he didn't have Matt. He just wanted to kill Coulter because Coulter saw his operation, right? He wasn't gonna kill him until the guys were like, well, he knows too much. So I mean, I don't think the leaders guy have him. So now we're thinking, who has him? The girlfriend said that they sounded European, and we find out that, then the next scene that you see is you see Matt. and he's tied up, right? And then they get a phone call, and they're European. I'm not too great with accents, but there's a man and a woman, which makes sense because that's what the girlfriend said, a man and a woman. And he just said it's time, and they bring a toolbox to the man. Now, if you've seen my videos, I'm not a big fan of torture at all. Like, I can see a fist fight, and I know this stuff is fake, but I don't like watching somebody torture somebody else. It's just I don't like it. So when I saw the two locks coming towards Matt, I'm like, please don't tell me they're gonna like rip his fingernails off, or you know what I mean, like burn him, or cut his skin. Like, please tell me it's not terrible. And what they do is they open his mouth and they pull his tooth out. So I mean, obviously he's bleeding because they just ripped out his tooth, and then they took like a Polaroid of like Matt's face with his tooth, and sent it to somebody, right? So I'm like, okay, that wasn't too bad. I mean, it's painful. I wouldn't want somebody ripping a tooth out of my mouth, but I'm like, that's bearable, right? And I'm like, okay, so who are these people? Because now we're just assuming it's a third party. So Coulter calls Ivy. Well, first you hear Rennie yell at Elliot, like, what did you get Coulter into? He almost died. So, of course, Elliot apologizes. He doesn't know what his client's into. But then Coulter calls Ivy and says, hey, what are you doing? And Ivy was like, I'm on my way to eat Lindo. They have Matt. I'm going to drop off the money. And Coulter's like, no, it's a setup. They don't have them. And of course, she doesn't listen and I'm sure that's a parental thing too. I've never been in that situation, thank you, Jesus, of my son being, kidnapped. But I think, even though in so many situations we know it's probably a setup, just the thought that you might be getting your son back and that you've lost your son, I think a lot of people go do ransoms, even if they're not successful, because you just desperately want your child, right? You want to hope that you're the percentage that you get your child back. So her not being a good person, right? Being a part of a mob or some illegal business, I think a little bit of her is just so fearful for her son as a parent. And we also find out when we talk to Vargas, even though they were best friends growing up, he doesn't have anything to do with the business. Like, he's completely clean. He's 23 years old. He went to high school, college. He wants nothing to do with his mom's business. So this was clearly, kidnapping of him just to get back at Ivy. Jarvis grew up in it. His dad worked in the Lido territory. He grew up, and now he works in the Lido territory, killing people or whatever, right? He followed in his father's footsteps. Matt was friends with Jarvis, but he never got into that. So that's the other thing too. Like, he really is an innocent bystander in all this. And I'm sure Ivy feels that guilt. Like, look, this has nothing to do with Matt. So we get to the train station or wherever, Ivy is to pick up. And we're thinking, like, who are this third party? Well, we find out she meets Casey. So remember, Coulter knew it was a setup. Ivy didn't believe him, just wanted her son back. And Casey was like, look, I'm going to kill you both. I'm going to kill you. I'll kill you first. And then I'm going to give the orders to kill Matt. I just wanted the business. You're trying to get clean. I guess that's what, Rennie's boyfriend was for, the Elliot. He was trying to help them with their books. And I guess Ivy's coming out of the illegal business, and her cousin wanted in on it. So that's what it was. And probably because Ivy treated him like dirt. I'm sure that had a little bit to do with it. So at any rate, he says he's going to kill her. Coulter shoots the gun right out of his hand. He's such a great shot. And, he runs. And he calls, I guess Coulter calls Vargas. We don't really see that, but the next scene you see is Casey's like, what doesn't matter because I've already given the orders to kill Matt. So I guess Coulter heard that, and called Vargas, because the next scene you see is Vargas kills the two people, the man and the European man and woman, and he saves Matt. And of course he probably has to kill them because nobody knows that Vargas is helping Matt, right? Because he said they're rivals. But I thought that was nice that he came to the rescue for Matt. And then he goes after as Coulter obviously goes after Casey and gets Casey, and you can hear cops, the sirens, and he's talking to Ivy, and Ivy's like, look, I'm trying to get clean, I'm trying to go above board, I'm trying to do it for Matt, I really love my son, I want to give him a second chance. So she seems very sincere. So I guess Coulter's like, okay, fine, leave before the cops get here, and then Ivy says, I owe you one. So that's going to be interesting. Maybe he'll get paid up at some point. He owes all these people these good deeds. And then Rennie gives Coulter the $15,000 reward. And this is, when Coulter's, by his RV, everything's done with. Rennie gives him cash, 50 grand, and he's like, is this illegal money? Is this, drug money or whatever? And Rennie's like, I don't know. It spends the same, but, we don't question it. So Coulter's going to give it to charity, which I thought was nice. He doesn't know what kind of money it is, but he feels guilty keeping it, even though he got Matt back and he did his job. And then Rennie's like, look, Elliot's really sorry he got you caught up in all this. And Coulter's Coulter. Like at the end, they're just sitting there drinking and having a beer, and they banter. I mean, I love Coulter and Rennie. They're like my favorite friendship relationship if they get together. I right now I just as this, as the expression goes, I want that to be a slow burn. If they get together, get them together in season like 5 or 6, which I know sounds crazy because that's years from now. But I like their friendship, and I don't want them to force the physical part of it and then they break up and there's awkwardness. Like I think they have slept together in season 1, or they did a flashback of it, but I like them as their friendship. If they do get together, I want it to be long term. So I don't want to rush it because I seriously love those two together. They just have great chemistry. They just banter, and I just love any episode Rennie's in because she always helps Coulter, and I like Velma too. I like Teddy too, but I guess we find out Teddy's not going to be here at all in this season with the storyline. But I love Velma because they all they're such good friends. They kind of banter and they're honest with each other, right? They don't lie to each other. So I kind of like that. They're just like brutally honest. And that's, I think, why I love all of these characters in this show. There's no sugarcoating anything. Velma is straight up with Coulter, Coulter straight up with Bobby and Rennie, and I just love that. So it was definitely a great episode, mainly because I love Rennie. And cousin Randy is growing on me. If he's going to be the replacement, I'm okay with that. But my preference is Bobby. There's just something about that actor that just puts that character at ease. Every time I see him, I'm just comfortable. So for me, I like Bobby. So I really hope, if he's taking a hiatus, I hope he comes back to the show. And I like Teddy. I like Teddy and Velma because you got to see their dynamic when you saw Teddy and Velma. When they have animals, I just like to see different dynamics on the show. Mainly because you don't really have a lot of relationships, right? I mean, Rennie's in a relationship now with Elliot, but Coulter's single. Now Velma is splitting up with Teddy, so she's basically single. Bobby isn't really seeing anybody, so like that's why I kind of liked that, to kind of have that camaraderie. But it is definitely a great group. I look forward to the show every week. Justin does such a great job as Coulter Shaw. So I hope you enjoyed my review. If you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them below, and I will see you next week for the next episode. Bye.